That is the sound of all you Stray fans realising that it hasn't made my top 5 Game of the Year list for 2022. I am CouchCube, and this is going to be, for the first time, PlayStation 5. Every single one of these games has been tested by myself on a base level PlayStation 4 and a PlayStation Pro, and the reason they've been plucked out and put on the list, amongst other reasons, is that there is huge improvement, and every single one of them offers a lot in that direction for the 10th generation systems. The first game I've chosen for my number 5 slot is Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, and this may come across as a little bit strange for some people. There was a hell of a lot that could have gone in this slot, Evil West being one, and the aforementioned Stray. I also feel quite Sony proud as well. Things have changed with console wars. Game Pass is now just its own thing, and it goes out to PC and all of the Xbox consoles, so it's quite hard to sort of pick a side properly now. But Sony have had a pretty damn strong year. 3 of the games on this list of 5 are PlayStation Sony exclusives, but none of them are PlayStation 5 exclusives, so it's bittersweet. Now back to the subject in hand. Why did I choose this? You know why. It's split screen, is completely off the hook, and it's one of the few games that has actually catered for that part of the gaming sphere. COD left us years ago with that, slowly took away the 4-player, but Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, wow, all barrels blasting with its split screen mode. Absolutely brilliant stuff. Borderlands 3 is one of the greatest 9th generation and 10th generation split screen shooters available on the market, and what Wonderlands has done is built on that game model and given us all massive amounts of hours of new content with that really cool loot based game model to muck around with. It's a super satisfying formula, and a lot of the fledgling problems that came with a split screen looter shooter like this and the Borderlands series were menu issues and crunch issues with the actual resolution and text legibility, all ironed out, and the user interface is just impeccable. They've jostled things around a little bit to make sure that everything is very much easy read and easy reach when you do hit that select button to go into your inventory, but more importantly, no disturbance on any of the other players' screens when accessing that very important and frequently visited menu. Another thing to take on board against Borderlands 3 is its subject matter and lack of gore or bad language, meaning that it's very accessible for a lot of other family members. This is a very good addition because Borderlands 3 is gruesome and brutal and really only exclusively accessed by people who are into that sort of material. This is accessible on so many different levels, and it's funny. The humor's really good. It's not too scary, so I like the idea of more open doors with this style of game. Why is it not number 1? Well, I don't feel that the team innovated enough. What they added was a fantastic melee or close quarters combat system, giving the weapon loads more swing and oomph when you start using it, but it's really huge Borderlands DLC, which is fine because I love that sort of content, and to have an entire AAA piece of DLC is totally worth the look. 2022 could be kind of the last time we see this level of production in a split screen shooter like this, so I want to make sure it's nodded to, as I mentioned in the original review. And of course the channel's got the base level PlayStation 4 and Pro and 5 reviews on it. Performs pretty well on all of them, particularly the PlayStation Pro. But back to the review on the PlayStation 5, this is head and shoulders above those 2 other mentioned versions. It also has a quality and performance mode available to you in split screen. I left it on performance. I much prefer wanting to see those smooth frame rates when it comes to a hectic game like this, but having that horizontal and vertical option, as always mentioned, goes a very long way. This game looks so much better with the verticals, and having it on a nice big TV, the resolution's crisp AF, the colours are blinding, HDR works fantastically, and when the bullets start flying, nothing is affected on a performance level. You'll be smiling at the dialogue and grinning at all the explosions, combat, and enemies getting their heads shot off. My Couch Co-op Indie Game of the Year is nestled nicely at the top of my new Top 10 2022 Couch Co-op and Split Screen game list. Hop on to that, annotation will pop in and link is in the description. Go on, buddy, eyeball is so scary! Old GT7 rolls up at number 4, and I've got a very strange relationship with this game. I despise its split screen. I think it's an insult to the industry and my channel personally, but its single player is an absolute blinding installation. I also slagged it to complete high heaven for having DRM, meaning you had to have an online service or system. You could not just put the disc in and fire this game up if you didn't have internet. So going into its single player content, I was like gritted teeth already, looking for something to just strike it off as a completely terrible purchase, but it did everything right with its content on a single player level. It reminded me of its whole heritage with A-Spec and all of those cool licenses, missions, opening things up. It's got a perfectly pitched difficulty gradient, which dovetails in with your money in your cars and just getting cool new stuff, being able to enter bigger races and gradually getting hold of more powerful cars as you wrap your head around those controls. And incidentally, I play this entire game on a pad, and it's one of the few modern 10th generation racing games that really persuades me to probably get a Thrustmaster and a decent chair and just a whole pedal system, because it's beautiful when you get those replays going or when you're in the pack and the thick of things. The sound design's incredible. We've got put forward for great sound design this year on an awards front also. Driving games are not for everybody, I understand that, but the Gran Turismo series and Sony are like mac and cheese, and the ray tracing and the beautiful 4K are like bacon bits. I recently put together God of War versus God of War Ragnarok as a comparison, straight up split screen. You can see both games simultaneously. I mentioned in that video 3 games that can handle the ray traced 4K quality mode at 30 frames per second without juddering or slipping all over the place, and this is one of them. It's impeccable, the 4K ray tracing mode, and it gets even better on the replays. The whole game is totally jaw-dropping on a visual level for the PlayStation 5. The base game PlayStation 4 version, you will see a decrepit version of what you're looking at here. But the PlayStation 4 Pro version is actually damn good, and you're hard pushed to tell the differences in-game. When it comes to those replays, the PlayStation 5 is just massively ahead of the game, but when it's actual in-car gameplay, there's barely much fluctuation. I've also not stepped 1 foot online, mainly because I'm not good enough, probably wouldn't even get past the qualifying licenses, but I'm waiting to find out how the private lobby system works with this game and friends, and adding AI and choosing courses. That's a whole Pandora's box that may or may not work, so stand by for that one. I also place a lot of my clips on an Instagram account, and this game gives me unbridled freedom with my camera in a paused section. It handles the own camera angles on the replays itself, which can be a little bit jarring, but there's a section where you do your liveries, and every car in your garage can be viewed at your leisure with the backgrounds changing. You know about the escapes where they drive the car in a sort of pre-rendered mountain range or some shit like that. It's just like the whole time I'm playing it, I'm like, oh my god, capture, oh my god, capture. It's ridiculous. And the amount of footage I have in my editing lounge when I'm putting said clips together is just limitless. The game has just got style everywhere. Just quickly for the replay geeks here, have a look at that gravel getting kicked up there, those little stones when my back wheel hit that bit of rough. That's how you know this game is worth 70 bloody quid. Is the game worth purchasing just for its split screen? No, and that's an emergency red light no. And imagine if it had a flawless, amazing, beautiful split screen with a whole campaign in it for everybody. It would be right at the top of this Game of the Year list. Where does it fit in the great echelon of Gran Turismo games over the last like 25 years? Well, here's the thing. Gran Turismo games are only as good as their replay graphics and their up-to-speed, high-tech simulation mechanics. And this one has got the best of all the series, potentially the best on the market also. So that's that question answered. Have there been any other racers that have remotely competed with this game this year? And yes, Forza Horizon 5 is also a game that regularly appears on my gaming calendar and one I love capturing for. But the quality and the old school ideas with that campaign and the heritage nostalgia combined with this 4K ray tracing is kind of unbeatable. Here is Aloy doing her best Breath of the Wild impression, and it is of course Forbidden West. Horizon Zero Dawn Forbidden West, and this game takes me down. What I mean by that is I struggle to soak it all up. Yeah, I stop doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm gawping at every goddamn detail. Open world games are some of the most difficult for me to get through because of said affliction, but I don't care, because this is one of the best looking open world games available on the PlayStation 5 for the year of 2022, and nowhere can you kill giant mechanical mammoths in this fashion. The capture thing I mentioned is real. Like, this game came out quite a while ago and I have not got far enough into it because of this issue with having to stop and just look at everything. Like 10-15 minutes can go past and all I've done is walked in a 10 by 10 square meter patch of the map. It's so deeply good looking that you get sucked in. When the channel was sort of first around, 2016, we had the original Horizon Zero Dawn be a PlayStation 4 exclusive, and it rolled out like a goddamn king of the industry. This thing knocked everybody over. It was the reason to get your PlayStation 4. Just seeing the intro, the instantly recognizable robot dinosaurs, it was a marketer's dream, and the game did no wrong for me, and it featured so heavily for like 2 years. It won huge lists, open world, single player, best like AI killer, Tyrannosaurus. It was just an epic piece of gaming. So where are you going with this, Coop? Well, there's a thing happening with open world games at the moment, and it's almost reversed as well with games that want to be open world. We'll get to that section in a second. So earmark this point for later. Assassin's Creed Valhalla started as a series, the Assassin's Creed series, as an extremely open plan, open world game format. But the Valhalla title, and it also started happening in Odyssey, have sort of stripped down a lot of their options when it comes to open world exploration or the mission structure. They seem to want to make them more of a cinematic experience. That has certainly happened with Assassin's Creed, with big cutscenes everywhere, very linear questing systems, and even sections of the world map that you just start in, open in biomes. They split it all up. I mean, what the hell is that all about? So you know where I'm going with this. It's happening to the Horizon series. The original game was just a proper open world sandbox, that's the important word here, game. This is pulling away from that idea. By the way, this footage is so good. My mount is just not coming. You call it sometimes and it just completely ignores you. I'm in a high powered area of the map I'm not supposed to be in, and I'm trying to run for some cover from these guys, and I find a perfect little bit to settle behind. Then I'm like, what's that red light in my face? And without sounding cheesy, that perfectly illustrates my point. That wasn't scripted, it wasn't a locked arena, it was me that created that situation, and it was the game's variables that allowed that coolness to take place. That's what you need to do if you're going to be making a good open world game, is populate that map and marry things up correctly so that it feels like you're having a proper handmade adventure featuring your good self, not a scripted, pre-planned, horrible structured campaign, which is not what you bought a sandbox game for. Forbidden West's beauty just takes your eye off that point constantly. It's a bit like a girl who's just a little bit annoying, but she's just so ridiculously fit that you can just put up with them. That puts me onto its questing system and side quests. They're really difficult and few and far between and quite badly made, and they keep splitting things up into like errands and trials, and I've walked away from loads of side quests because the solution is what I call stone turning, meaning it's a process of elimination using that damned scanner and just having to look everywhere all over a really fiddly structure to find out what the hell to do, and it does jar you a bit. But getting that raptor mount and getting that flyer, and when you get to the beach section, all's forgiven. You know, she isn't that annoying. Okay, that's enough with the misogynistic analogies. It's time for Kratos. We're at number 2. Things were tense then, but now you realise that Ragnarok isn't number 1. You're probably getting either angry or happy. Talking of misogynist, Kratos used to have like gold hooped earrings, a black goatee, and a quick time event in the local whorehouse. So he has gone through quite a change also. This game really impressed me, mainly because it wouldn't let me skip the cutscene, so I got genuinely invested in the story and started caring about everyone and the characters. Very annoying stuff.
Kratos? Snack?
I do not need a snack.
It's one of those games that makes me look at that large, quite loud, white, expensive box that sits underneath my television and think 450 quid is probably worth it to clap eyes on this sort of game. It is the best thing on the system when it comes to action-based amazing visuals, but also these interiors, the different realms, smoke effects, shadows, incredibly crisp detail on everything. Even the head on the back of Kratos has now got different animated expressions going on. I noticed that whilst doing the comparison video. The level of detail is through the roof with this. You remember the point I brought up about open world games becoming more scripted and like single player campaigns, and now some single player campaigns want to appear as open world games, and the God of War series is a great example of that, with the previous game giving you like a compass, an open world map, optional different objectives, even side quests that you didn't have to go to give the impression that it was expansive, not on rails, and not a linear experience. The ferocity of the combat when you first experience it in that quality mode at that pegged 30 frames per second is like nothing on earth. This is the first section where you get delivered fast, multiple enemies, you've got to pivot, use a lot of the blocking and push stuff back. Man, I had to pause it, take a few breaths and just think, I am in the 10th generation now.
On your left!
There's actually a couple of moments in this game that completely took my breath away, and I will say that the base level system obviously does suffer, but the pro version is also damn strong. So don't think I'm not going to get this until my 5 comes in. If you've got a pro, you're still going to be able to enjoy a lot of this graphical fidelity.
Is that a statue of Odin? They must really love him here.
Or fear him.
The results of the God of War on the PlayStation 5 and Ragnarok, i.e. this game, were very compelling because there are sections of the original God of War that aren't too dissimilar from how this game puts out. But when it gets to draw distance, large structures, and a lot of the set pieces and areas, towns, villages, or even maps that you get to, some of them completely demonstrate your machine's power to you. That Ryzen is definitely getting worked hard with this game.
Won't be hearing any more from those Draugr.
I am also getting a little bit obsessed with completion and getting all the secrets, so again, this has taken a long time. This fight was my second watershed moment. It's one of the larger enemies that comes up to you front quarter of the game, but it really does feel empowering fighting it. It's a lot better than the bear on the tutorial. This thing flips around, jumps over you, has electric attacks. Whole thing's got a massive Monster Hunter vibe. Absolutely stunning stuff. When it jumped over my head and when we kill it, I was like, man, this game is really doing everything it should to get to the top of this list. This is also just the first of loads of massive unique enemies that you fight in amazing set piece arenas. This is where this game has really scored strong, is mixing up those crazy random massive enemies.
Together!
What's it messed up on then to not allow it to boulder through to the number 1 slot? Well, when I looked at this structure here in front of me, all I saw was a whole bunch of ball ache, hours of switch turning and moving clamps around, using the axe on something that may or may not work. But this stuff is the carrot for me, so I don't mind these puzzles. I just grin and bear it because the combat is so sweet. It's totally saved the game for me and given me the blades early doors also. The story just strengthens that with some boss fights and encounters and cutscenes with Thor that's so good. He's kind of a bit of a legend, that both actor and render of that character in this. No spoilers, but you will certainly enjoy him. It's also throwing in these quite tough mini bosses that are ramping up on difficulty the more you take time to find them, and they're very scary. They have like an entourage, and going toe to toe, especially this fight with the finale ending in my death, very dramatic, cool stuff. You also get introduced to new stuff and new elements at perfect times. I've just done that Dark Tide review and it manages to inject something just as you're becoming a little bit bored with the stuff you're fighting, and nowhere is that more applicable than this level. I also got DDT'd completely at random, which just made me push that start button and get straight back into it.
On your right!
And there we go. You made it, mate. Sit back, Poggy. It's just vistas and scenic capture from here on in. Elden Ring, the king of games in 2022. On so many levels, I will break down every single one of them, but we do need to just do a double take on some of these colours and ideas in these maps. Even the build and attire of your character. I love to match aesthetic with where you are, or even what time of year it is. This is one of the best portrayals of autumn in it of any video game I've ever played in my life. That's pure coincidence, and it happens to be autumn in the section of the map, and it's autumn over here in sunny UK. So these colours in the trees and all of this atmosphere, it's just so nailed it. Have a good look at the reflections as well. Some of the bled out colours in there are almost oil painting good. This game doesn't try and recreate realism. It has an angle with its art style that so works with me. And that's my first important point. It is an art style. It is instantly recognizable, and everything that's been put into this game has had some thought behind it. You see very few cookie cutter animations or even builds on enemies. It's totally fresh everywhere, and you can only say that about very few open world games. I also want to look at what From's achieved here. Remember this point about open world games, linear games wanting to be open world games and vice versa? Well, From took on the open world map format. This was a bigger jump as Breath of the Wild. I know Wind Waker was technically open world, but it was still a risk for Nintendo to do that, and it was a huge risk, I feel, for From to do this, because with open world structures and sandbox modes, there's so many areas for error. You've only got to look at the shitstorm that Bethesda kick up every time they release a game. But the whole thing works, and imagine the playtest time they had to go through. This is a great example of how they implement classic Souls control schemes and cool new ideas within this open world map. This is obviously like a little run round arcade game. You've just got to avoid all the projectiles and get all of the souls you can before you're completely clocked and busted. I've got to be coming up to 100 hours on this game. Never knew this little section was here because I'm just having a wander on and off the beaten track, and you just get pleasantly surprised everywhere. Also, making the transition to torrent like that, the smooth jump, the Monster Hunter Rise style freedom it gets you, fighting bosses on horseback is just amazingly free feeling, and being able to traverse this map on said vehicle is so much fun, and to have that pushed into a Souls format, i.e. that deep, rich lore and art, being able to explore all at high speed on torrent, just quickens the pulse. These bats, any Primal fans out there? Blind coincidence or badass reference? I'm going to go for the latter. Taken to checking on the lobsters from a distance. If you know the channel, you know I do updates, and on the first update to peg the performance, I fought a damned lobster, which meant, we didn't realise at the time, that every update video I've got to do from there on in means I have to peg it against the damn lobster fight. It's the stuff for nightmares. I wake up screaming about, not as badly as Godfrey spawning in through an NPC in the middle of this area, and my god, those craters really help with traversing and dodging these swings at you. was so caught unawares, I was so angry that I didn't get to really roll my sleeves up and have a good go at him, because I just wasn't expecting to spawn in and notice that the health, I mean, that's +7, I think, that broadsword. I'm not even touching the sides with it. Even though I do have the talisman that gives me the increase in critical attack the more hits I land, which is absolutely devastating. And notice my red health bar on Twitter, some people have got that health bar going across the entirety of that top screen, and they're not even a quarter of the way into the game. What the hell are they doing? This sort of stuff, probably. Okay, enough buggering around now. We need to talk about why this is Game of the Year. This is probably quite a good example. Bumped into the Akira monster completely at random, falls out of the sky as well. Look at the state of it. This game, this open world, this lore and story and characters that From have given us, for me as an adult, is like the ultimate toy. It's like the ultimate thing that I can go into and muck around in and will always be there. It's almost tactile. It's like a universe that doesn't really have to end, and that's another reason why I'm not rushed to get to endgame, is because I just want everything to be done and seen by myself. You're never gonna replay Ragnarok, let's just say that now. You're gonna love it on your first playthrough, and diehards might even try a new game plus. But this is gonna last me years, because everything is just so deep. With all of its little avenues, there is no need to step away from it. Its online aspects and PvP modes are unbelievably huge, and must take so much of that team's time up just to maintain and nerf and buff and sort everything out after each patch to make sure no one's complaining about a certain sword. I am so happy with the offline single player mode of this game. I don't even have the call in help if stuff gets really difficult, temptation, because you got to do all this stuff solo first time round. Let's talk about this open world single player campaign sort of structure mix up that we've been seeing in some of the aforementioned titles. From and Elden Ring doesn't pretend to do any of that. It is a pure sandbox open world adventure action RPG. It's exactly what it says on the tin. It doesn't pull you into some strange one-way ticket. On Horizon Zero Dawn, when I look at those cauldrons, I'm like, I don't want to go in because I could be trapped in there for 6 bloody hours. Playing some video games can be looked at a little bit like eating an apple and someone chopping it up and giving you the little bits, right? I don't need to be fed the apple. Give me that damn apple. I want to take a chomp. I've been Couch Cube. I'll see you down there.
Now hang on to your feelings, alright? Because it's gonna get fucking hairy.